you're ready. Are you ready, Mr. Lester?
You're live.
Good evening and welcome to the Summers County Board of Education's regular meeting. It is Thursday, September the 10th, 2020, and it is now 6 p.m. Let the minutes reflect that all 5 board members are present in the building. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Brogan to lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we just want to thank you for giving us another day. Lord, we thank you for helping us, our strength we have to go about our daily tasks. Father, we just thank you so much for the staff of the Summers County School System from top to bottom. Lord, we're just so thankful for each one of their willingness to change and adjust to these perilous times. God, we just pray that you'd be with us tonight as we go through this agenda. Pray that we give each thing in it the proper attention. May the best decision be made for the betterment of Summers County Schools. Pray these things in Jesus' name. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 on the agenda is approval of agenda adjustments. This time I'd like to put forth a motion for an adjustment. The chair moves that the presentation by Bowles Rice on policies be moved up to the first item of consideration, first item of business.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor of the chair, second by Mr. Angel, that this board move a presentation from Bowles Rice up to the first item for consideration. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Minutes reflect that this motion carried by 5-0 vote. Any other adjustments that any members would like to consider or make before this motion?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda with the aforementioned change.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the floor of Mr. Brogan, second by Mrs. Farley. This board accept the agenda as presented to us by Mr. Warble, Superintendent, September 10th, with the previous noted adjustment. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. 5-0 vote in affirmative. This board has approved the agenda as presented on September 10th. At this time, we would ask that Bowles Rice, Mr. Warble, would you like to make the introduction and let everyone know why we are making this consideration?
Well, I talked to a couple of different people that could do our policies, because you guys know they need updated. And one company was Neola, and tonight we have Bowles Rice here to go ahead and give you guys a presentation, and then please ask as many questions as you possibly can, and know that he has about all the answers one could have. But I would say Howard Super, who I've worked with for years, has done a great job leading us to the right gentleman here, Trey. And I forgot your last name. Marone, sorry. I wasn't sure how to pronounce that, so sorry about that. But Trey's been good to correspond with. I do want him to know again, my heart is still with you with the passing of your father, and I knew he made some adjustments, and that's why he said I can make it later. So that's why he came a little bit later to work with him. So we understand that life's not rehearsed, but we appreciate your time here in Summers County. And he's already said great stuff about the basketball team. He's intimidated already, so just be nice to him for a little bit. But we welcome you and appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Did you want me to move over this way?
Sure. Up near the board there.
Okay.
You're fine wherever you want to be. So
Okay.
spread out.
I'll probably do more talking than looking down anyway. I am Trey Marone. I'm with Bowles Rice. I've been practicing law for about 32 years. Class of '88, WU Law School. Grew up in Wayne County, West Virginia. I've been with Bowles Rice since January, but I've been in a lot of other capacities that bring a lot of experience to help the Summers County Board of Education. I want to commend the board members here today and the superintendent about the just the challenge that you're facing. I've served my school board. I was the president of the Wayne County Board of Education for 4 years, but never in our wildest imagination would we be facing the types of issues that you're facing today. And I know that they seem endless and overwhelming, and I just want to commend you for the job that you're doing, and the fact that you're in the position that you're in right now is historic. So just know that from a former board member that I certainly, just wanted to let you know that. I also I've got a good bit of experience with, the school systems, working with Howard Sufer. I've worked with Howard as a board president. I've worked with Howard as an attorney. I've worked with Howard as an opposing counsel. I've worked with Howard as a colleague. He's just a walking encyclopedia. Super nice fellow to know. Personally, he's just a wonderful, wonderful man. What I'm here to talk to you about this evening is your policies and what I would like to be able to offer to you as an opportunity. I would certainly appreciate having the opportunity to do a comprehensive policy review for Summers County. I've taken just a quick look at your policies to see that you've got, about 170 or so policies on your website. There are a lot of them that are kind of old. I think these are things that you already know. And it is, really time to do a comprehensive review and to get those updated and current. Now, I will tell you that you are with more than 2/3 of the counties in West Virginia of managing and developing your own policies in your county, and having the board be in control of that and deciding what you need to do and how you need to do it. Every county's different, and it's not really a one-size-fits-all when it comes to county policies. There are a lot of counties that are really overpopulated with policies. There's too many policies. There's a lot of things that state law governs, federal law governs, that you really don't even need a policy on. You don't need a policy on everything. So what I would like to assist you with is to do a comprehensive review of the policies that you have. Take a look at them and see which policies maybe need to be repealed. They may be so outdated that they need to come off the books. Which policies need to be revised and amended and brought up to current standards? And thirdly, which policies need to be added? There are certain times when the legislature passes laws, as you know, affect school districts, and you all of a sudden have a mandatory policy. And you're like, okay, are we aware of that? Do we know? Like, in the last couple of years, there's been half a dozen laws passed that require you to have certain policies. So did you adopt those policies? If not, let's get those policies in place so that you're current and that you're in compliance there. It may be that a law was passed and it doesn't require you to adopt a new policy, but you just have to change the policy you have, or you need to add a section to it. When they changed the law in 2019 with open enrollment, everybody was required to have an open enrollment policy. Charter schools, you're required to have a policy. All of a sudden, the rules change with reduction in force, and you have to have a policy on qualifications. So some legislative sessions are busier than others. Some come down with more directives to local school districts and others, but we watch that and monitor that every year. We do a comprehensive review of all the legislative changes. So if there needs to be 3 or 4 new policies due to legislative action, then we're going to let you know that. And then if you, at that point in time, that's something year to year that you would be made aware of. Now, right now, we're talking about a comprehensive review. So we need to take a look at everything and bring those up to date for you. So it would be a process that would take time to do. And it always takes time. But policy making, and if I don't know how long each of you have been on the school board, but it's not usually a hot button topic out on the campaign trail. Policies, But policy making is one of the most important roles that you have as a school board member. I mean, you are formulating the policies by which this school system is going to operate. Your superintendent will have administrative policies, but those are policies that he needs to adopt to tell how he's going to implement your policies. So, policy making is crucial, and I think that a lot of times it's underestimated, the importance of it, and then also other times it's overdone. So what the proposal that I would have for you is to do it in 2 steps. Really, it's 3, but the last 2 are kind of combined. But first, we would do a comprehensive review of all the policies you have, which is, I think, I've counted 171, 172 policies, and see what needs to go, what needs to stay, what can stay as is, what needs to be revised, what are you missing? There might be a amendment, like, I don't know if you adopted a Title IX policy or a new Title IX policy, but all the laws on Title IX just changed, went into effect August the 14th, and they really impacted K through 12 schools. So you need to have a Title IX policy. So make those determinations. That would be a review that would be kind of the next phase to kind of see where everything is. Then once all those policies are identified, we would want to work with your superintendent and his staff to basically, whether it's in groups, sometimes people have committees, just different department heads or just different individuals that review certain things, that someone maybe in personnel would be the one, or a couple people in personnel would also, we would work with them on personnel policies, which are your largest number of policies. So we would look at what needs to be done and come up with a game plan and put those in priority order of how we're going to do that, because at the end of the day, when these policies get developed, they're going to be put in front of you for adoption. So you want to make sure that you know that they've been vetted by your people so that they're suiting your local needs. So then the next step would be to draft those policies, change those policies, make those revisions, and get them in a position to where they're ready to present to you. So the comprehensive review would be first. And then the next phase would be, after those policies are identified, would be to make the necessary revisions, changes, additions, deletions, what have you, and to get those in front of the county board. That's just kind of an overview. I'm not sure if you have any questions at this point that you would like to ask. I'd be happy to answer those.
Would you, in looking at doing a comprehensive review, would you look at it into a priority where you do basically triage and say, look, you guys are really hanging out there because you don't have a policy that you definitely need, or you got a policy here that's so outdated and it's wrong, it really bites you. Would you look at it from that perspective?
Absolutely, absolutely. That would be what the primary, the next step. If you approve Bowles Rice to take on this project, the very first thing we would do immediately would be to do that comprehensive review and to identify those very things, because those are the things they're gonna, you're gonna want to address first.
I suspect I know your answer to this. So when you would identify those, you would begin to roll out to us those policies. In other words, we wouldn't have to wait to start approving, get them on our books until you did the whole thing. We would get those up front.
You wouldn't need to, and I'll tell you, where more importantly, it would be things like what you pointed out is we're missing a policy. Okay, so let's get that out there. Let's recognize it. Let's get a policy. Let's get it in front of the board and let you get it on your books. There may be policies that you might need to decide how to revise them. How do you as a board want to revise these policies? Those would take a little bit longer. But the early detection would be of those policies that by some legal reason need to be updated or added immediately, or so absolutely.
And as we're going through this process, would you be coming here to meet with us or do webinars with us where you could ask a question, make presentations? What's your notice?
I can do with whatever you prefer. I know we've all kind of, we've learned more about Zoom, or at least I have, than I ever thought I ever would need to know during this pandemic. I like to be face-to-face with people. I like to talk one-on-one, but I've certainly learned that Zoom meetings and things of that nature could be very effective as well. So I think it would probably be kind of a hybrid approach to that. Certainly, anytime you wanted me to be here in person, absolutely, I'll be here in person.
There are certain legal forms and documents the system needs with policy. Think you all do work with that?
And what? I'm not sure I understood it.
basic forms that we have to have in implementing policies or in dealing with just various ongoing businesses of the school board itself?
We'd be happy to look at that. I would need to probably know something more specific about what, like, for example, people, there's, counties have forms, well, more recently when we're talking about the FFCRA and people taking leaves, there was a form that was being circulated, that counties could adopt.
That's along the line.
Yeah, okay, sure. And we may look at your form and say, there's not a one size fits all. This form meets the legal requirements and would be appropriate to use it.
Is there an amount of hours that you provide in training personnel on policy, or did you spend in presenting things to us?
Well, I think in this particular instance, what would come from the training would be, how the training would evolve would be if we set up, groups, the people that, for example, that would be your finance people that might be more, they would be more tuned to the fiscal responsibility policies. Through the discussion of those policies and the review of those drafts, that would be where the training would occur.
I've asked questions. Anybody else have questions?
I'm sure me and Robert both want to know what it's going to cost.
Okay. Well, I guess just throw it out right
to it.
Throw it right out there. Okay, I looked at this, and I'm certainly very sensitive to financial impacts on county boards of education. Like I said, I was on one for years myself, and I really looked at this, and I think where it's a comprehensive review, it was going to be a little bit expensive. So what I felt like was the best way to approach this was in a way that took it into consideration that there's not just an endless obviously you don't want to get into something that you can't put a lid on, just for lack of a better word. So, and I also thought it was a two-step process here that would be the best fit for Summers County. So the initial comprehensive review, which means we would take a look at all 171 or 172 policies to see what needs to happen, and we would also identify missing policies. We would do that for a flat fee of $5,000. Okay, and once those things are identified, we start working on developing new policies for the county, revising existing policies. Or simply, we can, on a repeal, obviously, we just tell you, you need to repeal these policies. There's not a whole lot of work. We would explain why, but there's not a whole lot of work involved in that. That would be something we would do in our office at an hourly rate. We work at an hourly rate, and we have our hourly rates are all exactly the same. But I felt like that, the best fit for you would be to put a cap on it. So the cap would be an additional $20,000. For the actual development of the policies that you would need. But if we get in and we only need to do enough work that it only takes $15,000, you would pay $15,000. You wouldn't pay $20,000 no matter what. It's not like $5,000 is a flat rate up front. Okay, you would pay that for the review. After that, the next phase, as I call it, would be up to $20,000. But if we've still got work to do and it's not done, we're going to finish the job. So if we're still working and we've already kind of kept track of our time and we are in excess of that amount, we're going to stick with that. So I just felt like that was
additional 20,000, or is it 20,000 total?
25 total. It would be 25 total. It would be 5 and then 20,000 to develop the policies. Now again, I'm just going to be candid with you. If it wasn't a comprehensive review, and I didn't already know that there are some policies that are really, maybe old, maybe some things that really need to be done, I might, have, thought that it maybe wouldn't be as involved. But I kind of predict it's going to be involved. But I didn't want it to be just too overwhelming. So that's why I came up with the number after talking with Howard and some of the others in our group about putting a cap on it. So you wouldn't have any more money out than that amount.
I'm sure there's some of the policies, the state policies, the federal policies that are pretty much a rubber stamp or a template fill in the blank that could be really quick, but there's probably some that's going to be.
There are, and trust me, I have a lot of friends at the state board that are being recorded, but sometimes I'll see a policy that comes out of the state board and a county wants a policy, and there might be things in that policy that you don't have to have, on your local level, and I'll tell you that, and say, this has got 20 things in it, you really only need 7. You can put the other 13 in there, but you don't have to, and then you can exercise your discretion on how you want to do it. But yes, I think a lot of times those rubber stamp policies are kind of like a catch-all, just to catch anything and everything, and it may or may not be what you need for your county.
About a maintenance fee on an ongoing basis.
Well, I hadn't really come up with a figure on that, but I will tell you this, that we review religiously. Howard, of course, has done it for years, and we're all involved in it now. We do a very meticulous, I mean painstaking, meticulous review of legislation every year. So anything that comes from the legislature that's going to dictate or require any kind of policy change on your part, we're going to know that, and we're going to have already identified that at no charge to you. We're going to do it anyway. We are going to do that anyway to service any of our clients. So we will be able to identify those things. Now, if, let's take 2019, there were 4 new policies that a county board of education needed to adopt, new policies. We would identify those, and we would talk to you about it, and we would say, you need these 4 policies, we can help you with those, and we would probably quote your price at that point in time. I'm sorry, I just didn't have a maintenance fee price in mind.
Based on your hourly regular hours.
You want mine, Howard.
I was gonna say, nothing against you, I'll take your rate.
Yeah.
When we need Howard, okay? No disrespect. Okay, that makes sense.
And I will say too, one thing, I was just probably with my background being an attorney on the school board, I've always been, I was in municipal government for 16 years. I was a mayor for 8 years, a city attorney for 8 years. Developing in ordinances is what we had in the city, but, just developing, things of this nature, reviewing things. This is just something I kind of like to do, but a lot of people don't. Even on the board members would be like throwing stuff at me because, policy review and policy making really needs to become kind of a routine part of your board. Not to say you have to do it all the time, but kind of get to where you're monitoring that and you're looking at that. And you obviously are, because you've done that for many, 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 many years. You've had your own policies. You're, like I said, you're like probably close to 70% of the counties in West Virginia that have developed and maintain your own body of policies for your county. And I would encourage you to continue to do that and to let me help you do it.
Superintendent Warble, whomever ends up doing this for us, and they put the policies together, will you then in-house be putting these policies on our new website, and there would be something like a keyword search that you could do to find the policies, and you have to categorize them?
Yeah, we want to make this transparent for anybody that goes on our website, knows exactly what we're doing, and that way it's transparent. Everybody knows what we're doing, and we have nothing to hide, and we got this all updated, and then continue to make sure the board and I work together to any new law that comes up. I know that Bowles Rice usually does something with the WVSA conference, and the WVSA usually pays that out so we can get updated, and that really helps us out. So that's kind of already figured in, if you will, a maintenance fee. We can then take that information and make that right. Plus, a phone call away says, you need to do X, or you need to refill this one because you've already worked with us. If you do, you're going to know what the ins and outs are. So I don't think that'll be an issue at all. No.
Superintendent Warble, do you have any questions you'd like to address?
No, I think the biggest thing that we'll have is, like you said, when we're working with you, if we work with you all, the biggest question is, my team is back here, whatever pertains to them, whether it's transportation or foods or curriculum or facilities, you would get our input from.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's critical. That's critical. I mean, and understand board members and your staff here at the county and how it operates on a day-to-day basis better than anybody. I mean, I can see similarities. I work with school service personnel. I didn't mention that earlier, for a year and a half. And I was in probably 50 out of 55 counties in West Virginia in that position, and saw a lot of variety. I came off of the school board, and I just kind of thought everybody did things the same way, generally speaking, when I was on the way. But when I got in that position and I was out in almost every county, and I saw the variety out there. I was kind of surprised, you know, and sometimes policies can get you, in a pinch. So, it is important to keep them up to date. But it's most important to make sure that the people who are the most knowledgeable about those policies, and I looked at the way you've got yours categorized, and I know you've already mentioned Neola was, here. So, they're not identical to the categories Neola has, but they're pretty similar. They're probably about 90% alike. They're not quite identical, but almost. You've got all your personnel policies in one category where they split it between service and professional. You've got a couple introductory type things, a little bit, they kind of match up with theirs but aren't worded the same. But you've got your policy, your body of policies is organized well. We just need to make sure that they're all up to date and current.
But you mentioned sometimes policies can put you in a pinch. In the event that pinch happens, since you all have helped us with the updating, you can then step into and assist.
Oh, absolutely. And what I was, absolutely, we can do that. I was kind of probably saying without saying is when I represented school service personnel, there were occasions when I went to your website, not yours, about Summers County. I don't think I was ever in Summers County, which says so much about you. I always tell people that. I said, there was only about 5 counties in 18 months that I wasn't in with employment issues, and I represented employees. And I said, those counties must be doing something really right, because and Summers County was one of them. I could name the others. There was
You're
only
doing a
about
good
5.
job trying to get the business here.
There was only 5, about 5. And so anyway, yes, what I was going to say is this: I did my homework.
You did.
And I would look at your policy, whatever the decision was or the issue was in that grievance. I looked at your policy, and there were counties that had policies that were not on track, and the grievance board will hold you to your policy. So if you have a policy that's not, where it should be, you're gonna have to adhere to it. So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that your policies are up to date, current, and what you want. And that's the other thing. The one size fits all. I just think that county boards are unique. You have unique challenges here in Summers County that other counties don't have. You've got unique advantages that other counties don't have. So your county the best, and you need to I feel like you should be in control of your policy making.
What kind of timeline are we looking at?
Well, it's a great question. What I think, and you made a point earlier about rolling out policies as the need becomes aware is certainly very important, but the comprehensive review up front needs to obviously happen first. I'm not even saying that it has to be completed, which is the point we already discussed. I thought and felt like that a fair estimate of that was, I started to say 60, but I would say 90 days. That would be to complete the review. But if in the next, first 10 days after we start, we identify 3 or 4 policies that you need that you completely don't have, we can go ahead and start the ball rolling on that, because, I would, if you choose us to do this project, I know that you're going to do all the phases of the project. So we would then move on into what I was referring to as the next phase on those, drafting those policies. So the time frame will probably vary. I think the comprehensive review of all the policies will be done within 90 days. Could be sooner, but I was just trying to gauge that, just to be fair. But you'll already have policies rolling out. So I would perceive that in this school year, this calendar year, you would get your policies in order. Does that make sense?
So going with that,
And if you need a different time, tell me, because you can get the whip out.
well, to go with that, is it a possibility? I'm just throwing this out there. I know the $5,000 flat rate, but is it a possibility if we go with the 25? Let's use that for an estate. Can we split that into 2 fiscal years to spread out the payment? Like 2? Is that even a possibility?
I'd have to get
I know
approval of that.
Okay, that's fine.
But
I was just
certainly
trying
be
to
glad
lessen
to
the
do that.
blow.
No, I'd be
Because,
glad to.
you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
12 and a half and 12 and a half is a little bit more palatable.
Yeah.
I'm just looking out for the board's interest on that one. If we look at our
is on that, so we're looking at 10 and 10.
What about total? It's 5 plus the 20.
Oh,
Yes, a total of 25. That's a question Howard would probably be more likely to answer standing. He was staying here, but
Yeah,
I will
okay
talk to
with
him
it.
about
You
it.
can't answer this question because I want you to be able to take them back and then I know you can email me or call me and say, well, with this question you're asking, yes, it's a possibility to break it up into 2 fiscal years maybe. And I don't know if that's even a smart
No,
move
it's
to
a-
ask, but you know, when we're looking at our budget, I don't care if it's you give us the best deal in the world. It's still there's only so much money, and then dealing with COVID on top of it. I know you mentioned it earlier. But we have to get these policies up to
Absolutely.
date. It's a no.
Whatever we can do and it's available to be done, I'll
Yeah.
push as hard as I can to get it done. And I would say this, and I
Be careful.
hey, listen, you hire us to do this job. I've stood here in front of you, work me like that old left guard, middle guard, linebacker, whatever Coach Ward needed me to play on the CK football team, work me like an old mule. I mean, just take advantage of it. This is your time to get everything in order when you have a cap on your fees. Bowles Rice has got, we charge for services and, it's up there. So, I'm saying I felt like, I was trying to think from your all's perspective as a board member, if I can get this quality of service Bowles Rice can deliver and I can get a cap on my fees, I think that's an opportunity that I really would encourage you to,
Sometimes you gotta give what you pay for.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what the board will do on this, but I'm gonna call Howard tomorrow and tell him that as a sales rep, I would have hired you about.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
But
it.
anyway,
Appreciate it.
do any other members have any questions before we allow him to go back to come up?
Make me pay for that 63 championship. He's going to, I can already see it.
Well, we do have a mandate to update these. Okay. So we have to do it, but I think Superintendent Warble, we get it done this calendar year, school calendar year, we're okay with our mandate and getting it done. Because the main thing is get started on it. So we will have met our obligation to the State Department.
And if the mandate was specific in any way and it's something you want to share with me, we can focus on the specifics of it and kind of prioritize that way as well. If we get to that point.
Superintendent Warble will handle that.
Okay.
There's no other questions. I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll be making a decision on this shortly, perhaps as soon as the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, you have a safe trip back.
Thank you, sir.
Is the market open down there?
Yeah.
I came by, I saw some people coming down there. I
You'll
feel
be
like,
glad to help you out with that.
And they actually,
okay. I always stop away.
Mr. Boone there likes, never mind.
Thank you all. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any comments by any members regarding this? If not, Superintendent Warble, do you want to put this on the agenda for the next meeting? I think it'd be prudent for us to make a decision as soon as possible because we are under a mandate to do it. We really don't need a mandate to do it because they're so outdated.
This is the only two we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
NEO is really, I think, they're the primary one that does it or does it in the state area. There's not many people who do this service. Talking to Superintendent Warble, we thought that we wanted to have at least another option because of their experience with Bowles Rice. We checked and they, as you can see, they do this. I think they'd be very meticulous on it.
Not real set on Neola's legal representation.
I thought you might not be, but anyway, we'll discuss all of that. But if you'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting, we'll deliberate and make a decision. Okay. All right. We have approval of minutes for August 27th, regular meeting, and September 2nd, special meeting. And I wanted to commend you, Superintendent Warble, and your staff. The way you've done these minutes and presented them to us, I read them. It's very professional done, it's very organized. We'll zap you a little bit, you got a date wrong, don't you? You got a date wrong?
Someone,
Is that be correct?
It's a time, actually.
It's a time, okay, all right.
yeah,
So that's not a problem.
don't worry, the bus drivers got me today, now you guys, it's just one of those days.
We have
There's a new day tomorrow.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as read.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, Mr. Brogan, second by Mr. McBride, that this board accept the minutes presented to us by the superintendent for August 27th regular meeting and September 2nd, 2020 meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. By 5-0 vote, affirmative, the ayes have it. Approving the agenda. That brings us down to public comment. Do we have public comment?
Nobody signed in.
Nobody? Okay. 7, 8, and 9, something that Superintendent Warble and I came up with. And we came up with this because along this line, the state board had asked us to develop something that recognizes students. So we have item 7, student success stories. Do we have anything in that area? I know we just started school. Is that one we'll be picking up later?
Yeah, we'll pick that up later as students get back to this new normal.
Having success.
Yeah, I would say the only student success stories I could say is they're coming back to school, and all students have done a great job of wearing masks and complying. I would say that we've had both sides of the alphabet. Students who came, I would say they weren't smiling as much as their parents seem to be. But I will say that the kids just want to get back to normal, and that's what we're trying to do as best we possibly can. So that would be a success, that the kids are coming to school and doing what we're asking them to do on the buses and on the playgrounds, in the classroom, in the hallways. They've done a great job coming back to school.
I think there is a success story here with students. One of them was one of our students came to a board meeting, wanted to find out and hear directly what was going on, and she made a comment to make up her own mind. I think that's a success story because that student, and if we can mention names, I'll do that. But that's a success story because of the fact that they were being involved and wanted to know. And then I think you had some additional, in which you met with some other student leaders, and I understand that's very positive and very helpful. In fact, I think you were very much impressed by what they had to say.
Yep, they were concerned about their schooling.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
That's good. So that's a success story. That's something to build upon. Let's
Yes.
move to item 8, instructional initiatives.
Okay, item 8 ties in with instructional initiatives. When you guys look at purchases over 5,000. So we did a one sheet again with purchases over 5,000. I'm going to tie these two together. Edwards Educational Services. Now, I don't think we're going to spend a total of 50,000 on his help, but he has his information there. We stapled it 6 pages long. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go over something real quick to let you understand how Edwards works. Dr. Steve Edwards works with the instructional side of education. Are kids engaged? Are they teaching the standards? And are they getting a deeper knowledge than the Google level? You know, if you can Google it, then why have a teacher, right? You need a teacher to take that information and go with a deeper depth of knowledge. I don't want to go a mile wide and an inch deep. I'd rather go about a foot wide and go as deep as you can so kids can understand and adapt and apply their learning. And that becomes the mastery. What are kids mastering in the classroom? That question needs to be asked more. So what Dr. Edwards did was he came and worked with my staff and our principals, and he asked the question, what do we have influence over? And that's a very small bubble. Then the next one is, what do we have influence outside of that bubble that we can control? And then the bigger bubble is, what are stuff that we can't control? What I loved about that day was the principals and the staff came up with these 5 items, and we had more people focused on the bullet of what we can control, because we can all blame outside interferences. But we need to talk about what we can do when we're with the children. And Dr. Edwards can work with our staffs and our principals to start becoming trained with looking at how to become better with our student achievement. Right now, we're not doing too well with that. So we're going to own that data. But I don't want to compare ourselves against the other counties or the other states. I got to compare how we're doing right now with what we're doing, and that's me. What can I do to get better? So one thing that we've learned that's in our control is number one, quality instruction. So we have an issue that could be happening in our county. Lack of knowledge of the standards, lack of experience. Maybe the bar's been too low. Maybe we have lack of confidence. Maybe we have unwilling people that want to change. And then the last one is we really need to focus on a realistic vision that we can all encompass and stay focused on. The second one is classroom management. Has anybody ever been in a room where you're just like, oh my gosh, there's total control or not total control? I think we can all agree with being in both. And we've all seen somewhere in between. Our classroom behavior has to get higher expectations to expect more out of kids. But if I'm not interested and I don't have a purpose, I'm probably not going to listen to you. And if you're boring, I'm definitely not listening to you. So that's where the student engagement has to come in. Dr. Edwards has plenty of data to help support that. And then discipline, lack of student motivation. If I'm not motivated in your classroom, why am I there? That's a fair question. Don't tell kids because you have to be, because if you have to be there, then you don't want to be there. I learned as a young kid, I'd rather want to play for a coach or want to be in a classroom versus have to. If I have to be there, I don't want to be there. I enjoy coming to my job. I know people probably laugh at that, but I really want to be in this job. I really enjoy it. If I have to be in this job, you're not going to get much out of me. And that's where we got to train people to start thinking differently about their classroom behaviors in the classroom where they can control it. The third one is data. If it's not meaningful to the kids and it's not meaningful to teachers, who cares about a state test? Who cares about achievement? The only ones that will care about it are the ones who want to go and get money for college or go get a career in the CTE or get off to the military. But everybody else might be like, well, I'm going to drop out because this is not meaningful, or why care? It's apathy. And then the last one, resources and schedules. Resources don't always mean money. Resources mean the people in this room. We're a resource, correct? If we're influencing each other with our resources and helping out, maybe we can do better with the way we're doing our business. And maybe we just need to change, because what we've been doing is what we get. And so if that's the case, then we're practicing insanity, not genius. So I want to change that culture and climate with your help. And the last one is scheduling. Maybe the schedules within the school day need to be adjusted in a way that maybe can, expand on better behavior and wanting to be in the school classroom. If you've noticed, expectations have changed in the last 6 months to a year due to a virus. People have changed the way they educate. And a screen is not always the best way to do things, but having a person who can connect through a screen remotely, it might happen, guys, because there's counties doing that right now. And we could be one in the future. You just never know when there's going to be more of an outbreak. So the point that I'm getting to is those 5 items that we discussed, and I really appreciate my directors and my principals focusing on what we can control. The one thing I want to tell you that I want you to take home tonight to help you educate people in the community is when a kid is 0 to 18, they're with us for about 12 and a half years when they get to preschool or kindergarten. So during that time, if you take a kid with 180 days of school for 12 and a half years with perfect attendance, I said perfect attendance, I have 8.75% control of that kid. That's not a lot, is it? So we have to do our darndest to make sure we do what we can to help that kid during that 8.75%. Because what's out of my control is the family tree, where people live in their zip code and what they're going to do with the information we try to help them out with education. I can't force people to drink water. I can get them there, but I can't make them drink. And you guys know that saying. And I just think it's interesting that point that we can control, we have to do our darndest to help those kids out. Now, if they don't have perfect attendance and we have all these signs that say attendance matter, do you kind of believe that now when you start looking at the data? The part I really like is if you come over here, the takeaways. The reason why I'm keeping these is so we don't forget about this. The takeaways, it's kind of hard to read his handwriting, but since I read similar to him, I can actually read this. The first one is I really like this. Our group of people in this room, and they're here to tell me if I'm way off, and I'm okay with that, is we can do this. That was the first thing that we said. We can do this. Guys, that's huge with our climate and culture. The second one, though, is they want us to stick with it. We can't just do a flavor of the month and then leave it. We really need to stick with it. We got to dig deep into what we're doing. And I like the next bullet, relationships. If you don't have rapport with people, I don't care what you know until you care about me. And we have to have good relationships or great relationships with our students. The part that I thought was interesting that Dr. Edwards brought up, and I've worked with him for a few years now, I've never heard him say this till that day. He says we focus too much on the hows and the whats. He goes, really, we need to focus on the why. So if I'm a principal and I come into your room and let's say Mrs. Farley's my teacher and she's got kids broken up into different groups, I'm going to say, Mrs. Farley, why did you put them in those groups? And Mrs. Farley will say, well, I broke them up into groups because a couple kids here were struggling and whatever, and a couple kids over here with behavior problems, and I wanted to put them out of the way of the doorway where they would have their attention drawn. You know, if she's explaining some stuff to help get them to where they need to be, that's fine with evidence. But if Mrs. Farley just said, well, I think and I feel, wrong answer, because I think and I feel does not get us where we need to be. And so we need to focus on the whys. The next one is, I can't read the next one. Relevance, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. We have to have relevance in our classroom for kids to be engaged. And then the next one is purpose, and the next one is takes time. It takes time. And up at the top, we really need to look at our data that we currently have and understand the data we have. Because I think some people know our data, but they're like, so what? Right? You go to the doctor and they tell you your blood pressure, and I always say, so is that good? I mean, seriously. And so if we don't really know, then how are we going to have relevance to our purpose in the classroom? So Dr. Edwards, I've worked with him a few years. He has told me that he started up schools in other countries where they worry about the males having inappropriate relationship with the females. If they came to our community, they would think we are rich. Sometimes you got to gain perspective of where you're at and where you want to go. And so with him being in all different countries of the world and all states but one, he has a perspective that gets us to have an open mindset to what we need to do to really dig deep. What I like about him is he'll tell me, Dave, is this what's best for kids as a superintendent? And is this what your board believes in? He's going to call us out. Guys, I kind of like that. It's refreshing. If I want to become better at my craft, I need someone like him to push me and to push everybody in this room. We have a student in this room that expects us to do a lot. If we expect him to do a lot, shouldn't we expect it out of ourselves? And so basically, this is what my report is on Dr. Edwards to tie in with the instructional side of life to go back to the initiatives that we're talking about. I don't know if Renee, you have anything you want to add to it since you're a willing hostage with me?
I think you covered pretty
Okay.
much everything.
Do you have any questions on this initiative that we're looking at?
Did you work with Dr. Edwards in Fayette County?
Yes,
So you've worked with him several years.
yes,
Is it fair then to assume that you've also worked with other people who do similar types of things as he does?
yes.
Why should we select him as opposed to some other candidates for this?
I would like you to hold me accountable with my evaluation with him. That's how much I believe in him. We will turn this county around. He will come in and he will make us better just for the fact is he knows how to ask questions and keep peeling back an onion layer to get down to the root cause of why we're doing so well or why we're not doing so well. As far as I'm concerned, I'll back this one just because I saw what he did in Fayette, and he really asked some tough questions that were hard to answer. And when he asked you a question, Mr. Duncan, what is history in your classroom? Now, I know you can answer that because you've been in education long enough, and I'm not asking you, it's a rhetorical question. But if you're a teacher and you're like, well, what is mastery? What does that mean? And what am I doing to make kids better? Am I just teaching out of this book because this is what we purchased this year? Do we cover all 20 chapters because there's 20 chapters here? Or do I really look at the standards and say, what in this book has the standards I need to teach in a school year to make kids better versus I need to cover this? So you start asking yourself that question. Plus, it goes back to these 5 questions. Quality instruction and classroom management. Those are 2 biggies right there in a classroom, folks. And that's what I want to hang my hat on is he's going to come in here. He'll have full range of our school. He'll have full range to talk to teachers, and he'll have full range to talk to anybody in this room. He even has full range to ask a kid, so what'd you learn? And if this kid right here can't answer that question, don't we have a problem? Because you as a parent at home should be able to ask your kid, what did you learn at school today? And you always get what answer? Don't know, nothing. That, I want to change that. Because kids should come home and say, well, we did this in the classroom today. I don't know what it means, but my teacher said we're going to understand it at some point in time. And then all of a sudden, there's a good discussion at home about what you're doing at school. So we have school as a meaningful place to go and learn. Because at the end of the day, we're preparing kids for a world that's not out there anymore. We're not back in the 19th century or 18th century, but sometimes we act that way. And part of that is the way we do our scheduling. Right now, our scheduling is based around farming. I don't know how many farmers are in this room, except I can think of about 1 or 2. But other than that, we're basing our schedules based on farming, not maybe what's best for education. I know it's a little radical what I just threw at you, but you hired me to make changes, and I can't sit back anymore. We have to look at the instructional side of our school system. So take a risk or don't take one. That's okay with me. You make that decision.
So he would be working with both administrators in the schools as well as the central office and with teachers and with students.
Everybody in the county will know Dr. Edwards
And,
real well.
So does he do this will he have training sessions with teachers? How would you set that up if so? Or does he how will he operate?
What we end up doing in Fayette to evolve was framing your success is what he calls it. He has to look at what you're doing in your building that works well and some of the things that are great. And then you go off of that. Other things are negotiable. It might be the way you do PBIS to the way you manage the building to your schedules. But his biggest thing is he's going to ask, why are you doing this? If people go, I don't know, we've been doing it for 100 years. Okay, so is that what's best? Because you'll hear that. We've been doing this for years. Well, it might be good to do that because it's a good thing. It also might be, is this thing we could change? And then he'll look at our data, which he has all our data now, and he says, you guys are struggling in math and language arts. There's no doubt about it. But we need to attack those 2 things and then look at the ways that we can build on that with instructional leadership. And our principals have to know how to do walkthroughs in a classroom. If I walk through your room and I see that all the kids are behaving and they look like they're engaged, and then later I ask the kids, so what are you doing in there? And they go, I don't know, we just keep our mouth shut. So they keep talking, and then we get out of the class in 45 minutes. Trust me, that has been asked, and that was my answer I got from a kid. We just don't want to listen to get yelled at. We just want to get through the 45 minutes. Other kids, you don't even have to ask them. You go, that was an interesting classroom. And then they just vomit information on what all they've been doing the last month. To me, that gives me hope that that classroom is doing something with adapting to new technology, to learning something new, and not just Googling it. So when I interviewed with you guys, I talked about PBLs. That's where that comes from. Dr. Edwards does project-based learning. So instead of doing the skill and drill over and over, I learned better with geometry after I got out of high school when I worked for a builder. I was like, oh, that's what those angles, it makes sense. I mean, a miter cut, 22 and a half gets you a 45. But, in class, if I'm doing paper and pencil, it didn't pertain to me until I got into geometry world with a guy who said, you screw up these cuts, it's out of your paycheck. Lesson well learned. Now, you can't do that in school, but you can say, guys, CTE can provide that. Or your classroom, there's tiles, square footage, what's an area. You can do all kinds of things to make learning fun. Nobody says you can't have fun, but Dr. Edwards will challenge not only everybody behind me, but also me, as well as I hope you all, because I want this to become a place where learning doesn't hurt people. Learning encourages more failures. And I can tell you today, I failed forward. I tried something, I messed up. I apologize to the bus garage. I'm gonna survive. We're gonna come back tomorrow. It's okay to fail as long as you're failing forward. It's really okay. So to answer your question, yes, I worked with you.
Nice question. It was a yes or no answer. So in dealing with math and ELA, he looked then at our 3 levels, elementary to middle to high, and look at the scaffolding and see what we are doing and aren't doing that's building the fundamental skills, and then reversing that back and having middle work with elementary say they don't know this when they get here. How to do it. Is that part of the type thing?
Yeah, what he'll do that teachers will not like at first is he has a matrix that he's built. And what it does is deconstruct the standard and ask, what is the standard that I'm teaching and what does that look like? I think a lot of teachers think they know what they're teaching until he'll dial down with you saying, what are we expecting here? And when you start deconstructing standards, it's not fun. But once you break it down, then you understand the why. And that's what it goes to, not the what and the how, but why are we doing X? And to me, if I can get people to think a little bit differently, then what we can do with our leadership teams, those leadership teams can work with other teachers and their principal to say, what are we doing to get to the why and how will we get there? And they all wrap in together. So it's a paradigm shift, and I know I'm a big chunk of ice dropped into a lukewarm water, but you didn't hire me to sit around. You hired me to move. And I think this 50,000 looks like a lot, but it doesn't mean we go up to that number. But I also know if we need him to come back, he's about $3,000 every time he visits. So what I want him to do is, since we have those Wednesdays open right now, I would like him to come at the end of the month and work with the secondary one day, elementary another, and then talk with us and the principals on needs to be spent in a way that isn't just makes us feel good with incentives. This is better spent money here with Title II money, our Step 7. I get incentives all day and get nice Bobcat shirts and all that. That just makes me feel good. That doesn't make me a better student and get my kids to push them in a direction we need to go with them. So I'm asking for you guys to have faith in me on this one. It's a huge lift. I do know that.
So this cost would incorporate his ongoing involvement.
This will be all year, all school year with us, yes.
Okay.
This isn't just a one and done. This is an all school year.
Will you bring before the board?
And he'd be glad to come and talk with you all too if you'd like as well. He said
You
that.
bring him before the board, and before you contract with him, would you bring forth to the board a contract that you work out with him, so that perhaps you and I look at or discuss it and bring it before the board, but a contract that the board can see what we're going to get for what we're paying for.
Okay.
Is that reasonable?
It's all reasonable, yeah.
How long would a session be that he would come?
We get him the whole day.
The whole day?
So like this last time, he came for one day, and what we came up with was things that he really got everybody to think. I think the principals, at this point in time, the feedback I got from them was pretty positive. Do you want some of the directors, because they saw it for the first time, you might want to ask them.
Well,
I'm biased.
The reason I asked that question was, if it'd be like a 4-hour thing, would there be a possibility of getting 2 schools in a day? But that's obviously not.
Yeah, he's here for the whole day, and he said he'd be glad to talk to you all. His price is $2,900 everywhere he goes. It's for a whole day. Dr. Martin worked under him and then broke off from him to try his own. I like Dr. Martin. I think he's a good man, but I like to go with the guy who started it all and is a huge success nationally, world. He's always traveling to work with all different types of schools. He's created his own schools out of this country to try something different because he's always thinking. And I appreciate that education, because when you keep doing the same old, you get the same old. And you can exercise in futility and wonder why we're not getting any better. To me, this is another way to spend our title money in a productive manner to get this guy in here.
That was my only other question.
Okay.
Throughout it, throughout your experience in education, there's so many of these issues, things you do. How would you structure this as far as who would be people in your system who would become experts on these teaching, so that there's a continued follow-up and monitoring to make sure that what he presents and teaches gets used over and over, and it becomes part of everyday mindset. This is just a way to do it. How
Well,
would you structure that? Just I'm sure
one way we can do that is adjust a strategic plan, especially as we're looking into next school year. Another way is me doing evaluations of principals. They have two goals. One of their goals could be looking at becoming a better instructional leader, and I can work with them. But the thing is when you do an evaluation of someone, if you don't provide supports, they can say, well, you didn't help me and I didn't get anything. How can you evaluate me fairly? And I don't think that's not a far reach. But if I'm going to pressure people, I better give them a lot of support. So I think Dr. Edwards would support the initiatives to the directors, and the directors and I work with the principals and our principals. When they do their look-fors with their evaluation, I need to talk to my principals. What are you looking for that Dr. Edwards has been working with us on these issues? And right now, that one ties in with this one. And if I have principals that said we can do this, that wasn't from us. That was from the principals who said we can do this. That's some buy-in right there with the guy coming for. He was with us a full day in the morning and in the afternoon. He's with the principals with us in the afternoon. So he was at the board office all day, but half the morning was with us. The second half was with the principals.
Okay. Any other questions? The next one,
Oh, volunteers.
community volunteerism. We have a lot of that taking place, and with our limited resources, it's most valuable to us, and most productive. And we need to be thankful to those people. We need to acknowledge them. And Superintendent Warble, I think you have a list. So things you'd like to say on this.
Yeah, I had, this is just part of the list. It's a lot, and I don't want to do anybody disservice by not mentioning every volunteer. But since I've come here, I've had people work with the people that they can influence, talk about that power of influence. And if we look here, starting out with the summer learning backpack distribution, we had Karen Bollinger and Diana Price. If you go down here with the volunteering all summer long with delivering foods during the summer feeding program, I know Dr. Knott worked with that, and it was a warm summer, wasn't it? Yeah. But we, as a state, the state superintendent said 5 million meals were served this summer in our state, not in our county, but in our state. That says a lot, guys. There was a lot of volunteers, a lot of people supporting our communities. But within our own community, Rhonda, Willie, Kit Durham, Stephanie Bowling, and then it says, I'd like to recognize Reach, Doris Selko and her staff for helping deliver food for all summer long for our summer feeding program. I know they were right across the street. That was kind of nice when you have them right across the street, and they helped out. So am I missing anybody else from the feeding program? Okay. We'd like to thank them for their efforts. And it's kind of weird that our summer feeding program has been extended into December. Yeah. We'll probably have a full report on that later, but I just want you to know there was a lot of volunteers to help feed this summer. The other ones that came to me from Susie Hudson was about the volunteers who helped with moving from the middle school to the high school. She'd like to thank the city of Hinton employees supervised by Billy Dan Gill and supported by Mayor Scott. They moved furniture and teacher supplies for 2.5 days from the middle to the high school. She wants to thank them. We also would like to thank Summers County Community Corrections Program. They moved all the books from Summers County High School Library to Summers County High School Auditorium, and then to Summers County Middle School. It was a Sudoku puzzle. You have to move this before you can move this before you go to there. They moved boxes and furniture to Summers County High School. We had community volunteers. Tim Bowling moved teacher furniture and supplies. Joe Wheeler provided truck and trailer and transported furniture to the high school. Nelson Spencer and his friend Danny moved furniture to the high school. And then our staff, we had Ron McAllister packed and loaded furniture and supplies to high school. And then we can't forget Charlie and Frank. They've been kind of, they've been those two guys who are like those crabs in Finding Nemo. Where they're just like, come on. They did a nice job. And I got to thank everybody behind me that was helped out. I know on one Friday we all wore old clothes, and I got permission from Renee. Did you ask me a couple? It's okay if I wear old clothes. I think you wanted to make sure, and I appreciate that. And Mr. Boone and his group of people, he's had a lot of different people who have helped out as well. But we'll get more names to you because I think this is something we need to recognize because there's plenty more. But at this point in time, these are the names we have. And we just wanted people to know in our community that it does take a village, and we're very appreciative of their time and their efforts for this. It's called sweat equity, and we really appreciate that. Am I missing anybody else? Wayne, you have anything to say? Okay.
I would like to thank Mr. Lester for bringing down this rush hall. It's been almost 2 days, one of which was a Saturday, and working on the riverbank behind the school. It's much improved, but it's better. We got more work to do there. But that was over and beyond, and I personally want to thank you and board members. You should be aware of that. Good job. Also want to thank Richard Chris, better known as Muggin. He's on the football staff. He's a former graduate of high school. And Derek Martin, also a former graduate. They came down one morning and went behind the visitors' bleachers in the football field and cut that mess out of there. They did that on their own volition. Richard Chris has spent another day or two down there just weed eating and cutting brush off. And that's the type of stuff that really helps out because during this move, our custodians were very busy with a lot of things in the building. There's just a lot to be done. And there's so much stuff left over from the summer that wasn't done outside. A lot of work's been done.
And I think Mr. Boone, who did when you come out of the high school and you look down that road, it's hard to see because the railroad, some of that growth. Who helped you all? That we need to thank too.
Yeah, we had several bus drivers Wednesday morning. They all broke off in teams, and we brought pole saws and stuff and went down and trimmed that. And then the state road came back and went over it again along the tracks, and then along the side towards the where you go down beside the high school to the right. They cut all that brush down through there. The bus drivers did, and hauled all about 6 loads of stuff out there. So a lot done.
I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people look at it, but thanking these people would be a nice thing or someplace on our board website when we thank people for people's input. All that we're doing on the air now.
Yeah.
It's very, very helpful. I want to thank everybody for working on that.
Well, any of the bus drivers that come out there now have about 2 football fields one way looking. It just helps everybody to see traffic, and
Safety's number one.
it is number one. I
I
appreciate their
can
work.
tell you, I'm sure that that roadside tomorrow night will be full of people who can't get to the stadium, but they're going to get to see that game. Trust me.
And I've got one person, Chris Scales, that has just went above and beyond. He has been there every day from March, from the time that everybody was out. He volunteered and came every day and helped us every single day. He came on weekends and weed eated around the garage, and he even came this past Saturday and weed eated, and was down there today on lunch working on a Dixie chopper. So yeah, so he's done a lot.
it goes back to that circle of influence. What do we have control over? And you can see a lot got done with all our volunteers to help control the environment we have. So thanks is not enough, but we have to recognize folks who have helped out. We'll continue to do that, but I thank you for your time, Mr. Duncan, on those 3 items.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 10, approval of bills. And within this packet that we were given, this list of bills, these are the bills we are approving tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay, I'll bring it.
There's a date on there of
I'm trying
9/4/20.
Yeah, I'm trying to find my little copy. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I just checked 3 of them because I wasn't sure if you guys had conflict of interest. Does anybody have CC Safety Supply, any conflict with that one to vote on? So you're, okay. I thought that might be one. And then, what about, fire safety? Was that another one? Okay, that's what I wasn't sure. And then that last one, I wasn't sure if it dealt with you, Mr. Duncan Pearson.
No.
Okay,
That's a command.
so the only one is, okay. Okay,
Motion
That-
to pay
that-
bills.
okay.
There's a motion on the floor, approved and seconded by Mrs. Farley that we pay the bills. I'm looking through here, I do not see any bills, does anybody see any bills from the Raw Hill or James Law?
I do not.
I didn't. That's why I wanted to bring attention to
I
those.
appreciate that. Any discussion? Then all in favor of paying the bills as presented to us by Superintendent Lovell, please say aye. Opposed, abstained. 5-0 vote affirmative, bills have been paid, or approved to be paid. Transfers and supplements, item 11.
Yes,
It was none of the above.
I don't see any guys.
Okay. I don't see any old business on the agenda, so I'm assuming there is no old business. We have here approval purchases over 5,000. That is the cheat sheet you gave us with the vendors and the amounts and the fund from which the money's coming from.
If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind Ken explaining one, because we had a last board meeting, you all approved, remember US Cellular?
Yes.
Well, it'd be better if I yield to him, to let him explain stuff that deals with technology, software versus hardware versus US Cellular has control over versus they don't have control over. It's convoluted. I'm gonna let him try to clear that up.
So that's not on this list, that's something else, right?
Yeah, it's something else, but I also want him to explain, okay, one other thing on here though too. I figured if he could do a 2-for-1 on that real quick. Go ahead.
So the zones purchase for 40 some, right?
44 rounded up.
Yeah, 44,000. That is to try to make our classroom teachers that vacated classrooms with interactive touch boards whole due to the fact that the middle school is in the high school building. So we're purchasing at least 13 additional that was put on our state budget for TFS funds, and that's Tools for Schools. The rules for Tools for Schools is that's grant from the State Department that have to be purchased on the state technology contract. Doesn't get bidded out. It's a single source provider. Zones won the bid this year, so we are one of the first purchases on that contract because we, with Eric, talked to Brenda Morris at the State Department and said, "Hey, we got an emergency," and there's the quote. And it is to help those teachers make sure that they all have the equipment they need in their classrooms.
Is that the one for covering on the shipping dock in case we approve it?
I did ask them to have them ready. The other one is not on your list, but if you recall in your last regular scheduled board meeting, you voted to approve 19,000 and some change for 8 hotspots for the community. When going through the purchasing process for those, we found out that US Cellular needed us to pay directly to Concise for the hardware routing components, and they wanted to pay us to pay US Cellular for the data service. I asked them if they could pass that through, since it's, you buy a cell phone from a cell phone company, you pay for the cell phone through the cell phone company, not Apple usually, and you also get the service. But they had some trouble doing that since it was over $15,000. I did a bid on our Tips USA contract. We did get a reply to that bid plus the Concise bid, so we only received 2 bids on this hardware router for the 8 hotspots. And in that bid, I required it to be able to be retro compatible, backwards compatible to school buses with the mounting hardware and everything. So all of that was wrapped up in that bid. So I had 2 bids. I went out to Amazon and pieced the equipment together to get a 3rd bid because I only got 2 bids. So the amount stayed exactly the same because Concise was the lowest bidder. So it's really just splitting up that original purchase that you guys approved, one for the service, one for the hardware. The amount doesn't change at all. And we wanted to be open and upfront about that change. So when you see the bill next time around, you don't go, wait a minute, we approved a 19,000, but we didn't approve a 15,600 and a 4,000 or whatever. So
Mr. Lester, does this 43,903, does it encumber all of the money we have for that grant for tools for schools?
it finishes it out almost to the dollar. Yep.
And where does that put us at the high school, middle school, as far as teachers who have or don't have this new technology?
So it's hard to get, and I've asked that question. I think, and that's not a good answer, I know, but I think that's going to put us pretty much everybody covered with instructional technology. And we have, I think we'll have even enough to put in the CTE areas that don't have it yet. So
this is a new technology in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That supersedes the old whiteboard, smartboard
Yep.
stuff.
this really cuts the cord. The tablets that we bought all of our faculty, they can write on them. They're wireless, but they also talk wirelessly to the board. You guys have seen me do a presentation on my phone and direct it to the board. Well, they do that from their tablet, and it helps the teachers be mobile in the classroom and not behind the desk.
The sign glasses incorporated.
Do you want to address that? I'll have Dr. Knott address that with you.
It's a sign language and transcription service, and we're purchasing the transcription, real-time transcription service for students who are deaf. And actually, the price that's on the requisition in the last couple of days has been cut in half. It's been like $2,000. And it's for a whole year. The students will get their core classes transcribed real time. They don't have enough sign language to utilize the sign language part of it. And then the transcriptions are good. They last for a whole year. They'll be able to access them, go back and look at them in their class. And right now we're using it for students who are hearing impaired, but I think that it has, it's probably going to be very helpful for students with learning disabilities as well.
Have you seen this in action?
We've spent it, Wendy Bailey, who's the hearing and vision teacher, and I have spent the last couple of days doing some equipment checks and training at no cost, just to see if it's going to be worthwhile, and I believe that it is.
We have several students who will be able to avail themselves of this.
Yes, and that's why it's kind of cut in half. I thought I was going to have to pay for each student, but these students share classes, so we only have to transcribe one time.
So is it going to be, instead of 36, it'll be 18. That's great. And that's for county funds.
Special ed.
Do members want to take things separately? Just take them all. Okay. We have 3 purchases here, over 5,000. We have a 50,000, 36,000, 43,000. Good portion of the money is coming from Title II or for a grant from Tools for Schools. Anyone will put a forth a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchases of $5,000.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the floor, Mr. Brother, second by Mr. Angel, that this board approve the purchases over 5,000 as presented to us, mainly Edwards Educational Services, 50,000, up to 50,000. Sign glasses, 36,646, which has been cut in half, that's county funds. And Zones LLC, Tools for Schools, that's 43,936. Is there any discussion?
Additionally, Mr. Lester's.
We'd already approved that one, hadn't we? We'd already approved it. You just wanted to bring us up to date that he had to do a requisition different.
Okay.
Any discussion? And we did say, Superintendent Warville, that we would work under this Edwards Educational contract.
And what I'll do at the next board meeting is I'll just have him call in, and he lives in Virginia, so
Okay,
he
that
can
would be
call
fine,
in.
so that we could look at the contract
Yep.
provisions and have the parameters.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it. 5 votes in the affirmative to approve those 3 purchases over 5,000 previously read. We go to 13B, approved payment of head baseball coach 2019-2020 school term. 2280 Joe Blankenship.
You want me to explain that one?
Please.
Okay, I'm gonna do the best I can to explain this because it seems weird, but Joe Blankenship, as well as other coaches who have coached, and then let's say they were out for a year or two, there becomes this lapse in credentialing through the SSAC. He needed to get that credential, but he did coach, but he didn't coach because of COVID. But you pay all the other spring coaches. He just needed to make sure he gets his credentialing caught up before we could pay him. So therefore, it's a little bit later, but that's just how it has to be because he has to get his credential through the SSAC. So we're dealing with that with a current coach in the fall sports, and we're getting that caught up too. And if you get out of coaching, there could be a lapse there, and it's kind of like when you try to update a school building with ADA compliance. You always have to come up to whatever year you're at. So that's basically the reason why Mr. Blankenship is getting paid for his services. That was past school year.
This is the same thing as we paid last year.
It is. It's no change in payment.
I'll make a motion we approve the Joe Blankenship baseball coach.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, Mr. Broden, seconded by Mr. Angel, or Mr. McBride, I'm sorry, Mr. McBride, that we pay the head baseball coach fee for 2019-2020 school term 2280 Joe Blankenship. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it. 5-0 vote. Motion passes. Item 13C, approved special education specialist supplement 3250, Martha Mann. Would you explain, please?
I would love to. Dr. Mott, would you explain, please? I mean, I can do it, but I think she would. You have a doctorate, so.
When Mrs. Mann was hired, the posting said state scale. It really should have said state scale with supplement. And we're just trying to make that right because she does do way more than a teacher's salary.
So ordinarily, it would have had that supplement at the
Yes,
posted.
the previous person had this up on it.
Okay, so, all right, so then we're asking the board to approve that because it was omitted. Anything else?
No, that's, we're getting a good price on this, plus she's gonna do even more, so she's been a breath of fresh air here at Central.
That's great.
I make a motion to approve the
I second it. There's a motion by Mr. Angel, seconded by the chair, that this board approve the special education special supplement of $32.50 for Martha Mann. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Ayes have it. 5 votes in the affirmative. Motion 13C passes on Martha Mann. 13D, discussion and possible action regarding policy 8-N-4, Summers County School Board policy of fiscal adjustments. I want to say about this policy, that policy was put together in conjunction with Attorney Bolts Rice. Time the board approved the 5 of it. And the last item on it indicated that it could be revisited and amended. There's a copy of that. You could see it. We passed this several months ago. It's on the board website. I would ask that all board members read that, look over it. I know Mrs. Farley, you're an expert on it. You can say it verbatim, can you not? And what I would like to do, ask you, Superintendent Wool, if you would put this on the agenda for the next meeting. And so at this time, I would move that this policy be placed on the agenda next meeting for discussion and or possible amendments. That's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion on the floor with the chair, second by Mrs. Farley, that the purchasing policy be placed on the next agenda for discussion and or possible amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. The ayes have it. 5 votes in the affirmative. Next agenda item will be the discussion and possible amendment of the Summers County policy of fiscal. Okay, that brings us to item 14, personnel items, rescind employment professional.
Can I do all these at one time?
I'd look them over, I have no problem with it.
Okay, everybody else okay with doing that?
Can I
Superintendent Moore?
explain one thing?
There is one you told me you wanted to explain, so go ahead.
If you look at the first one where it says Emily Vance, and that, we are rescinding that one because due to, we don't need all 3. That one's, so when you go down, you'll see Emily's name twice. The reason why you have substitute, it's still on that first page for professional. You have Emily as TIR, and you'll see everything on there except for no autism now. And then you'll also see she's substitute teacher. When you get credentials from the State Department, usually you get the substitute before you get the other. So we got to have them both on there because you don't know which one gets in there first. I mean, so basically she'll be a long-term sub until the other comes in. That's why it looks like it does.
So we're going to rescind it on one case.
Yes.
You're changing the autism requirement.
Yes.
And then we're going to hire someone.
Let me ask my attorney, Dr. Knott, is that right? We are good now. I'm good.
Okay. Anybody, has everybody looked at those? Everybody comfortable with doing them all together? Okay. And these are your recommendations.
That is correct.
We have items, personnel items 14. That's a long list. They're presented to us by the superintendent. This is probably one time. Do you want me to read the names, each name, and then do them all, vote them all together?
I think that would be the easiest way to do it.
Okay, all right. All right. Hopefully I can see a little better now. I just had cataract surgery. I didn't do so well last time. Emily Vance, we're going to rescind her employment as a autism teacher. Kevin Green, professional administrative certificate. as homebound teacher. That is a recommendation for employment. 2020-21 school year. Diane Price, teaching elementary education 1 through 6, homebound for this school year. Moving forward, we have, is it Thomas Lewis
Yes.
as a long-term sub for English 5 to adult social studies. And that is a homebound teacher for this school year. Emily Vance, we're now, and she's been recommended as a long-term sub, pending the TIR permitting process documentation. And we're then hiring her without the autism pending the certification, correct? So she's on there twice. Okay,
Yes.
I understand. Everybody, you question, everybody understand that? Okay, Wendy Basham, TIR permit pending, be a substitute teacher this school term. Pending TIR. Superintendent recommends for service personnel, Roger Bennett, transportation, bus 142 this school year. Brenda Allen, Summers Middle School, cook 2, effective today. Adrienne Connor, special education food bus monitor in Erie Elementary today. Resignation retirement, superintendent recommends Catherine Allen, substitute teacher, and Kimberly Ward, extracurricular, extra duty cook at high school. Those are the names recommended by the superintendent. Chair would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve superintendent's recommendation.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Angel, seconded by Mrs. Farley, that this board accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding personnel under items 14. We did these in mass. Any discussion?
I just have one question on Kevin Green. I'm sure this homebound teaching will take place after his assistant principal on
Yeah.
triple field.
Yeah, and these homebound teaching positions are really hard to fill, especially with the time after school hours. And it's always hard on people who have kids because they get to their extracurriculars, and that takes a lot of people out. It's just where it is. And he is willing to do that, so he'll have his principal job duties fulfilled, then he'll do the homebound.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it. The motion carries to approve the superintendent's recommendation for personnel under item 14. Let's move forward to item 15, approve in and out of county request. We have PI from Raleigh County to Summers County. We have CH-BH from Ballard Christian School to Summers County. Chair moves that we approve these in and out of county requests. I'll say. Motion on the floor of the chair, second Mr. Brogan, this board approve item 15 to approve in and out of county request for the items previously read. Any discussion? Take that. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it. 5-0 vote in the affirmative. We have approved item 15 for those students to come to Summers County. Item 16, superintendent's report, COVID-19 update and facility update. Mr. Ward.
I'll be brief because I also have 2 other items to add. COVID-19, basically, you saw yesterday, or you heard yesterday maybe from the governor's point of view with orange, you can tell that these color codings are changing a little bit. It is an election season, so don't be confused by all the facts. Know that I'm working with Chad, and he's my guide on the side when it comes to COVID reports. He did tell me today another case has popped up, and then I talked to him right before the board meeting, and then it's up to 2. So just in talking with him in the last 6 hours, it went from 1 to 2 quick. 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 can go real quick. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying we are ready to go remote if we have to, and we have food ready, and we're gonna do the best we can. People have to understand this is very fluid, so it's to be continued. Tomorrow's a new day. Facility updates, I talked to Charlie today. We're doing a really good job on getting everything where it needs to be. I talked to Charlie about looking at the future and doing preemptive strikes on our facilities. I don't want to be reactive anymore. I want a service maintenance agreement. Charlie's working on that. We can use our co-op, our ESC, the new RISA. They have train already on the books as a state bid. We can use that service agreement and have train. I'm using that as an example. But everything has a lifespan. Our buses, our buildings, humans, trees, plants, animals, we all have a lifespan. So if you build a brand new facility and talk it's the newest building, and it's getting close to that age where stuff needs to be replaced possibly. So Charlie's gonna start working with me on some kind of a way to try to be preemptive striking versus reactive striking. Because I don't wanna fix things, I wanna service things. And then if we have to buy new, we are preparing to save money aside for that. So I wanna start, that's another triage movement that I'm trying to do here. So look at how we can keep these facilities up to date without paying more than we should when we could just take care of things. Now, I can tell you right now, that's what I'd like to do as of today. A year from now, I hope I have more information for you that we're looking at so we can say, here's what we're gonna have to buy in a few years because things are going out of service. Buses are already that way. You already know that a bus is gonna go out of service. The state gives us enough money to buy 1 or 2 buses, maybe 3 a year. That's what we want to do with our buildings. We want to make sure we can maintain them. The other thing that I had on here was Ken's going to talk to you about something that I think is near and dear to my heart. Our website is almost a go. What I'd like to do with that website is I wanted to make it user friendly and have lots of pictures. And Ken has really accepted the challenge on this one, and I know he would like to make this live. But I told him just get this done as soon as possible because we could put a COVID page because there's always something new with COVID coming up to date, either at the national level or state level or our local level. We want to keep people informed on how things are going and as we're moving forward. Ken, can you go ahead? And then I got one more thing, it'll be quick, but can you go ahead and give them a quick update on this?
Haven't been able to put the time on it that it deserves just due to school starting up. But
That's a good excuse.
sorry. But I want to make a commitment today before you come before us for your next board meeting. That this will be live and all of the information will be up, and we'll actually cut over from the old website. I now know I need a searchable index of policies that I've learned here in this meeting. So,
That was not my question.
So, but one thing we've added, because Superintendent Warble goes, Ken, do we have a COVID-19 update section on the page? Well, I said, well,
He does now.
Dave, the night before he asked me that, I put in there how we contact the students, what we're doing to protect our students, and a link directly to the state metrics and the graphic so they can see the map on it. But we can add other updates locally to that COVID-19 update. But there's going to be a lot more to it, and I hope to make it live before we meet again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then I also had the request about the hotspots.
Yeah, so
I was just looking, I'm playing.
probably under that COVID-19 piece, we can not only go over the Kids Connect spots, we put them out. And now that we have the bids in, we're going to go through that purchasing. I'll work with Kayla tomorrow to get the POs completed. And then we're at the mercy of US Cellular and Concise on getting those access points set up. But part of that cost is them helping us get them configured and set up. All 8 I won't say commitments because I've told all these people, if it's not working out for you, we'll take it out. If the kids aren't behaving or if they're not treating your area with respect. But we have 3 churches, we have 3 fire departments, and we have 2
convenience stores that have said that they'll work with us on it. Bluestone Primitive is the one that has agreed. That's down Ford Street. Yeah.
That woman I was asking you about yesterday. The Primitive Baptist Church out in Ellison.
Yeah, it's out Ellison Ridge and Streeter. Yeah. I'm not as good with that, but it is on Ellison Ridge Road. Yeah. About halfway from Jumping Branch to the end. And we did do a speed test there during our preliminary.
You're fine. I'm just
Yeah. I put Marsha first, so she'll get all the phone calls.
I understand.
Let's see.
We just want to make this user friendly because the last thing we want to do is confuse people and not understand what our operation. If you don't make your business easy and accessible and transparent, then that's not customer service. And, the best companies always provide customer service and make sure you get it. I laugh at this that we're closed these 2 days. I'm just giving you a hard time. I appreciate Ken trying to make this look pretty good. The only thing I would suggest since we're in here is that kids first. We just make it a lot bigger because I want to focus on that sign out front and on this one that we do that. I can tell you right now, everybody in this room has done a heck of a job with kids first, and I can say without flinching or smiling about any of it, 100% serious. This has not been an easy task, but everybody has accepted the challenge, and I have no complaints. I really don't. The only complaint I guess I would have is, Friday night was a little tough on our boys, but they did get to play football. I didn't think we'd get to this point. I'm actually shocked. And tonight our junior high's playing. We got volleyball, cheerleading. It's a go. We are moving forward. The last thing I want to talk to you about is I don't want people to be confused tonight when I say these 2 words. Closure hearings. That's just how the state of West Virginia calls it. We need to come up with some dates that you all can have closure hearing meetings about Hinton with the middle school set in the middle of town. Do we fix that school and get it up to 2020 standards, which would really be 2021, technically not 2020? Or do we look at closing that facility and finding a way to provide a new place for our middle school students? So when they're called closure hearings, it's for people to come in and talk to the board, and you all get information and you take notes like I will on people's points of views on do you close a facility or not to close a facility. So when people hear closing hearings, it doesn't automatically mean we're closing. That's just code with the SBA that you have to have hearings and it's about closing or not to close. So that's why they're called closing hearings. So I will get you more details at the next board meeting, how many we have to have. I want to go above and beyond. I don't want to go below the number. I want to stay at it or go above to make sure we have people come and voice their opinions on what they would like to see done. But we will find locations that will help out our communities. If it's better to go to have a board meeting at a community where, like, we go to Tonkin or Jumping Branch or Hinton or the other side at the high school, or do all of them at the auditorium, we can get through that part of it. But we need to make sure we do everything with the T's crossed, I's dotted, with community involvement. And whether people are for or against something, that's what the hearings are all about. And we need to understand the process that we need to go through. So did anybody have any questions about that? Because we've got one academic year to keep those kids in that facility. If we have to go another academic year, we could do that, but we should have some plan on what we're doing to get kids back in that building or in a new setting. We have to find one of the other guys. You can't just say this is going to be like this forever. There has to be a definite date in mind. It can't be infinite. It has to be a date. Mr. Duncan.
Our next meeting is Thursday the 24th, is that correct?
Yeah, you're bringing up something I forgot to bring up.
Would it be feasible for you to have an agenda item for regular session to the board on the 24th? If determine the number of meetings we'd have to have. We'd have a recommendation for us under new business for where you'd like to meet, the times you'd like to meet, and then the board could act to approve your recommendation on that, and then we get that out to the public. So is that feasible by the next meeting?
Yeah, so if you have discussions on the next agenda, the first one I have is services of policies, to update our policies, whether that's Neola, Bull
Yes.
Rice. The second one is a possible amendment to a current policy.
Yes.
And the third one is dates for closure hearings.
Dates and locations.
Okay,
And the number of,
okay.
yes.
I would also like to add, Mr. Osborne for an update.
On HVAC at the high school,
Oh, okay.
could you do that? So that would be like a closing that down, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
For the next time, well, since we're asking that, I'd like you to add an agenda item on there regarding, attorney legal services agreement, discussion of possible action regarding contacting attorneys. We'll take that up.
Okay.
You and I can discuss that.
And to let you all know, I will have to phone in or Zoom in because the West Virginia Association of School Administrators, that's the group that I'm part of, the superintendents in the state of West Virginia. There's a meeting up in the Paramount, Bridgeport area. It's a 2-day training, and one's going to be all the updates on all about COVID, I'm sure. And then the other one is for new/aspiring superintendents, and I'm part of that with my mentors. So I find it great to network with other counties and see what they're doing, because if they're doing something great, guys, I'm taking it. I'll bring it back to our county. If I see stuff that we're doing well, I'll bring it back and validate it. I mean, that's what you do. And then if you see stuff we're not doing so well, we can change it. So it is nice to network with people, but if I go that night and then I know I can make it back and drive, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to, instead of changing the board date, I can just zoom in if you
We
don't
can
care.
change the date, whatever works for you.
What do you feel most comfortable with?
If you guys don't mind, I might as well zoom in because we really need to get this meeting in, and we got closure hearings and we got policies update. We got to solve COVID and keep feeding people and keep educating. Now the COVID part, I did slip in there, but it's just what I got to deal with.
So even though it's a lot of issues to deal with, you feel comfortable doing that, you being up there and you want to get it done.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with that. Anybody else?
And you guys can mute. Kenny, you like that one. Come on, that was pretty fun.
Yeah, we can do that.
Brian, I know, is laughing behind
Does
the back.
anybody, any other members have any requests for an agenda item for the next agenda? None? Then, Ms. Farley, you're on.
I make a motion we adjourn. The time is now 7:47.
Thanks, man. Adjourn.